Hi, I'm Jamie Giroux, and I thought I'd make a brief video overview of a talk that I recently gave at the EARLI 2023 meeting. This talk was on the associations between children's state and trait curiosity. We're interested in studying curiosity because of research showing that it's associated with learning, and there are different ways through which curiosity can support learning. And we're interested in how these things happen differently or similarly for considering curiosity as either something more stable within an individual or more momentary and based on the context as a state. And thinking about these differentiations, we think about this overarching idea of curiosity as the seeking of information in response to a knowledge gap, but we consider this in a way that says that it can be both a state and a stable individual characteristic. So as a state, you can imagine that people become motivated to seek out information to resolve a knowledge gap in the moment. And so there are a lot of things in that moment that might influence the likelihood that they want to seek out some information. To be considered curiosity, it does need to be intrinsically motivated. So it needs to be due to one's own desire to want to know, and not because someone else is telling them to, or they've been giving an assignment that they need to complete, or something like that. On the other side, there is a more kind of stable dispositional way of thinking about curiosity as one's general propensity to become curious across different situations based on how people might approach uncertainty. And specifically, we look at preference for and comfort with uncertainty, in that people who have this kind of more stable curiosity, when they're higher in curiosity, they are more likely to seek out situations to explore when there's more information that can be learned. So we would consider them to be more comfortable with or to prefer greater amounts of uncertainty. And what we really want to know is how can we promote this in ways that can promote learning? And when thinking about these different ways of considering curiosity as something more momentary versus more stable, this might impact whether or not we try different things, especially in classroom contexts. And so we thought we'd take a first step in exploring this by understanding how these two things might be or might not be associated with each other to begin with. So in this study, we had almost 100 children who were about 5 to 10 years old with an average age of 7.5, and children participated in their own individual schools. We gave them 3 different tasks. This was part of a larger study where they actually did additional tasks, but the 3 that I'm focusing on today include a self-report and 2 behavioral tasks that I'll talk more about. On the self-report measure, children used a Likert-style scale with 5 points to indicate how much each of the different things that they heard were true for themselves. So things like, I'm excited to learn new things, was one of the questions on our curiosity scale. For one of our behavioral tasks, we had an open-ended kind of free exploration task where children could seek information about different topics, and they could learn more about the same topic or learn about different topics. So if they clicked on one of these shapes, it would tell them about one of these topics. If they clicked again on that same shape, they would learn more about that same topic. And if they clicked on a different shape, they would learn about a different topic. So children could explore as much as they wanted, and there was kind of no external goal or directions for what they could do except to just play the game for as long as they wanted to. When they were done, we did ask them what else they would like to know, and we also asked them how they decided what they wanted to explore. Our second behavioral task was called country exploration. We think of this more generally as a themed exploration task, and we have different versions with different themes. In the country one, as you see here, children had choices of different countries that they could click to learn more about. They didn't necessarily know what country they would learn about, but they did know how many facts they would get about each of the countries. So you can see those little green rectangles with the question marks indicated how many things they would find out. And they were given the time to select 3 choices total that they wanted to explore and get information. So this is more based on kind of comparing different levels of uncertainty to see how much information children choose to seek out when they're exploring. So here's some descriptive data on the different measures, the means of how many explorations children did or how much information they explored, or their ratings of their own curiosity. You can see the means and standard deviations in the parentheses and then the range below. We did find that the 2 behavioral tasks were surprisingly not related, which I think is a really interesting question to explore in future research. For looking at what we thought about as trait and state, we thought that the self-report was more of an indicator of like that stable kind of dispositional type of curiosity. And we found that it did not relate to exploration in the open-ended task, but it did relate to children's exploration in the uncertainty-related task. It was a small association, so about 0.230. So something to explore further in future research. We do think that this suggests that there might be something different between exploring in this kind of uncertainty-focused context versus more unstructured information seeking. And surprisingly, we saw the association with the uncertainty task, even though the self-report measure did not ask about uncertainty. It was about more general information seeking. So something, again, to explore in future research because it's kind of interesting. We also looked at what children said about how they chose to explore, and we're still working on coding some of these responses. But in that open-ended exploration task, children didn't really say anything that aligned with ways that we were thinking about and defining curiosity. And they seemed much more related to things about interest. So saying that they like knowing about some specific topic, but actually most of the responses were that children didn't really know how they were exploring, or they were using a pattern or going in order or just exploring randomly. On the other hand, for the uncertainty focused task, we did see some of those kind of random or I don't know or pattern related explanations. But for the most part, we saw a lot of explanations related to wanting to learn and wanting to get more information and even wanting to limit how much information children would get. So for example, here are some of the responses that we got from children. Well, I wanted the ones with the most facts. So talking about wanting to learn as much as possible. Some of the random kind of related choices, and then this kind of monitoring or limiting how much information a child might want because they say they can only take so much information at once. So again, lots of interesting directions for future research to explore these more. So the main takeaways, we see that the way that we define and operationalize our construct, in this case, curiosity, and then develop subsequent measures to look at it really does matter because these aren't necessarily related to each other, or correlated, even though they're called the same thing. And also the associations differ among them based on what it is that's being measured. And so something important for future research to consider, and also the ways that we might generalize or try to incorporate findings across studies on curiosity in children that might use different measures and different definitions. It's also important to think about what is going on that's different between these two tasks, the one that was more open-ended and the one that was more uncertainty constrained, and think about what this might mean for educational applications, especially a lot of the recent work that's looking at how we can use uncertainty to promote curiosity in classrooms. We do still need to do more work on validating all of these measures, and that is ongoing and underway in our lab right now. Final thoughts, here are some of the things that we're interested in looking at in future research and open questions, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. But we would love to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments and want to share them with us, please reach out. Thanks for your attention and for listening.